Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Shannon Scott. Megan Roberts is off tonight. We begin this evening in Ottawa, where a Christmas Day homicide has left a family in mourning and a community reeling. 46-year-old Jolene Ariak, originally from Nunavut, was killed and a second person was injured. And as Faith Greco reports, one of Ariak's relatives is now facing charges in her death.
The incident has left residents in this quiet neighborhood in shock. 35-year-old Mana Sifu has been charged with second-degree murder in the death of 46-year-old Jolene Ariak. Police have not confirmed how she died. A second person was injured at the scene. The accused faces a charge of attempted murder in that incident. Since his arrest, Fu has made 2 court appearances via Zoom. The crime has unnerved neighbors. Michael Young has lived in the area his whole life. He's never seen so many first responders on his street.
It happened at supper time, 6:15. All of a sudden you see because I live at the corner and that's all you see. Flashing lights, ambulances, everything. And they had drones. I guess they were looking for, just in case, weapon. I don't know exactly. I have no idea, but it was quite surprising.
Julie Ploudre lives next door. Police came to her house the night it happened.
So when the police comes here and says, sorry, it's Christmas, I'm afraid to tell you there's been a homicide and there's a crime scene and we're investigating, it's very scary.
Ploudre says Ariak was in the neighborhood visiting relatives for Christmas. In a message to CBC, Lena Nashuk, Ariak's cousin, said the accused and victim are related. She wrote, "It's so sad. Jolene was bubbly, outgoing, and loved by all of her relatives." Kitchissippi councillor Jeff Leeper says the incident is extremely tragic.
We don't know what happened here yesterday, but I'm afraid that mental health issues probably played a role. And it is important that, all of us as a society do better to try to support people with mental illness.
Ottawa police have confirmed that Jolene Ariak is the city's 25th homicide victim this year. Faith Greco, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, to Whitehorse now, where some help is on the way for businesses in the city. Break-ins and thefts have been an ongoing issue this year, and the government is hoping some new money on the way next month will help. Gabrielle Plonka has the details.
New money for businesses is promised in January. The program will be run by the Whitehorse Chamber of Commerce and funded by the Yukon government. It'll pay for businesses to get security assessments and safety training. Money to actually buy security equipment is still under consideration. But for many Whitehorse businesses, the help is coming late. The North End Gallery, for example, already spent $9,000 on security this month.
Just after our last incident of, was it 3 or 4 weeks ago now? That was our second one this year. So the cost to me this year between the two is about $15,000. So I went ahead and ordered security bars for my space, and we installed them all on Friday. So I decided to not wait. I mean, I know the governments are talking about funding programs to potentially fund things like actual hardware to stop the after-hours issues, but I have no idea how long that'll take. And I don't want any more 4 a.m. phone calls.
Rymkin is one of many businesses broken into multiple times this year. It's an ongoing issue affecting most downtown storefronts. The Yukon government's crime prevention grant has promised to look into this in the long term. It outlined a 3-year strategy, which begins with several months of research and consultation. Some business owners say that 3-year timeline is too long.
Honestly, the first thing I would want them is to go, how can we actually shorten this timeline? How do we do this a lot faster? Because, phase 2 is collect qualitative data, meet with stakeholders, roll out a survey and conduct data analysis. And I'm like, why? We already know there's break-ins. Why do we need to have to collect the data? Why is it all more bureaucracy and just a lot of red tape? We're like, nope, we just need help now.
Pumphrey said she's glad new help is coming, but she also wonders when she'll have time to apply for the subsidies, let alone organizing the security assessments and training they'll pay for.
It's like you guys now have to be preventing the crime. You have to put in the work. And I'm like, small business owners already do a ton of unpaid labor.
The Whitehorse Chamber of Commerce is promising more information in the new year. It says guidelines and instructions for applying for the first subsidies will be posted in January. Gabrielle Plonka, CBC News, Whitehorse.
It was a dark Christmas for some people in Rankin Inlet, Nunavut. Snow and freezing rain led to ice buildup on the power lines, causing outages in parts of the community on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. The bad weather, including high winds, stopped charters from flying in, meaning outside help couldn't make it to town. But a retired local linesman managed to bring the power back.
We lost power caused by warm weather, freezing rain, snowing, wind. Everything didn't add up at that day, and it kind of messed the wiring up or the power lines up for the community, and we had a bit of a panic there for a while, but we got through it. Everybody helped each other out, and we found the right people to do the repairs on it, and we're so thankful for that.
Some residents were without power for nearly 17 hours. Local radio was out too. As the temperatures dropped, some people turned to traditional ways of heating their homes.
We lost power at 5 a.m. and it has been in and out. And no, we never cooked. We had to light a huluk because it was getting too cold.
The outage meant some holiday activities were cancelled, including the church service and family skating. Power was fully restored by midday yesterday. A young hunter from Kingite, Nunavut is going viral after he landed himself a walrus this past summer. No small feat for an 8-year-old. And as Samuel Watt shows us, the youngster has an even bigger catch in his sights.
Elijah's father, Itilui Adler, always knew his son was born to be a hunter.
When I was going out hunting, he knew that I was about to go out, and he would always want to follow me when he was like 3 years old.
So he'd let Elijah shoot some targets. At the age of 3, he made his first catch in Arctic char. The following year, Elijah shot his first goose.
And he wasn't even able to hold the rifle up on his own because he's quite small.
This past summer, Elijah marked his biggest harvest yet. They heard there was a beluga in the harbour. That turned out to be a walrus, around 40 times Elijah's weight. Listening to his dad, Elijah aims for the spot behind the walrus's eye, and he got it on the 4th shot.
It went down right away.
The father and son love hunting together, but always under supervision and with reminders about gun safety. Elijah has quite the future ahead of him as a hunter, and his dad hopes he'll keep it up and always remember to share his harvest. As for Elijah's next hunt, what do you want to catch next?
Beluga.
Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
It's not new to see killer whales or orcas in the Arctic. Sightings have been reported for centuries. But as our climate changes, more and more of them are being spotted in Arctic waters. In fact, researchers have now found 2 genetically distinct groups that seem to have moved in. They've migrated from southern regions. Colin Garraway is an evolutionary geneticist with the University of Manitoba. He led the research looking into what's happening with these whales. He joins us today from Winnipeg. Colin, hello.
Hi.
So I'm curious, what led you to want to do research about orcas in the Arctic?
Well, as you said, people living in northern communities have seen killer whales in the Arctic for as long as there are memories and stories about. But in recent years, there's been increased sightings of killer whales in the Arctic. And that could be due to a growing population or more individuals moving in. So we were just wondering where these whales were coming from. So our question was, who are these potentially new whales moving into the Arctic?
And who are they?
Well, we started with a bunch of opportunistically taken samples that we had, and then we went out and targeted more sampling. And then with collaborators, we did a test that's really very close to things like 23andMe, where you send in your genetic samples and you figure out where your ancestry is from. So using a global sample of killer whales from other research projects, we found that there were 2 distinct populations. So this was really surprising for us. These are so distinct that they almost certainly don't interbreed. One population moved in from Greenland, Norway, Iceland, so their ancestry went back to those populations that were next door. So that made sense to us, and I think that's what I would have predicted beforehand. But we also had another brand new population that wasn't in this global database of genetic populations that we know about. So we think we know these whales have been there for a long time, but we didn't know they were genetically distinct. So we had two distinct populations, and we speculate, we don't really know because we don't have old samples, that perhaps this new population is the population that's long been seen in the region. And it might just be growing now with increasing access due to climate warming.
So here in the Canadian Arctic, where exactly did you find these animals?
They were really sampled all over the region. The study population that I worked on most was out of Pond Inlet, is where they were focally sampled. But we have samples from Greenland and really everywhere we can get our hands on them from.
Of course, there's lots of different kinds of whales in those waters up there. How does this 220-ish whales compare to the population size of the animals you would expect to see around Pond Inlet?
Yeah, so one of the reasons we're interested in studying the killer whales in the Arctic is to try to understand how the ecosystem will change, particularly with respect to the Arctic adapted whales. And these are bowhead, narwhal, and beluga. So we've got lots of work on them also. So right now there's hundreds of thousands of beluga and narwhal. They're doing well. As far as we know, those are the primary prey sources for the killer whales. And at this minute, we don't have any good evidence that the killer whales are really making a large dent in those populations. But they are top predators. Killer whales, or the Arctic whales, we think in part evolved to live under dense sea ice to hide from killer whales. So they're rather slow and fat and delicious to killer whales. So the killer whales are certainly eating the endemic whales, but the 200 number relative to the 100,000s means they're not yet having a big impact, although they might in the near future. And we think that might be due to a possible growing population. So killer whales were excluded from Arctic by sea ice. So they've got their famous dorsal fin, and that prevents them from going under the sea ice. And we think that's in part what led to the Arctic whales evolving to live under sea ice so they could hide from killer whales. And so with the lengthening ice-free season, there's more and more time for more and more killer whales to move into the Arctic, and they're getting access to this big food resource. And so the population may be growing in terms of individuals being born and possibly individuals being moved in. So it's something to watch, the growing population, to try to just understand how to change things in the region.
Other than potentially over hunting the whales that have traditionally been in these areas, what other impacts could these new predators have on the Arctic Ocean ecosystem?
Yeah, so killer whales are, in the ecological jargon, top predators. So they're at the top of the food chain, and they change the behavior and the dynamics of the things they eat. And these changes can and have elsewhere cascaded throughout the ecosystem to have whole ecosystem level effects. We're watching the changes and trying to learn as much as we can about how the region's changing and what it might look like for the next few hundred years.
All right, Colin, we're going to have to leave that there, but thank you so much for your time today.
Great. Thanks very much.
The next generation of Indigenous musicians in the Yukon are finding their groove. CBC reporter Cheryl Kawaja takes us behind the scenes in Whitehorse, where a growing program is helping kids find joy through music.
Super slow. Exactly like that. Keep going.
I practice the things that I know, like that I remember.
Her mom has said that, she gets up every morning and she practices, and you can really tell. Piano is a real spark for her.
9-year-old Eliza Webb is one of about 50 students in this program. In the new year, that number is expected to grow to about 80 kids. Instructor Andy Slade says the goal here is more than just a music lesson. Gary Bailey, who is the elder in residence, agrees.
This program has been quite successful because everybody's pretty chill and pretty laid back, and we're just here to figure out what you want to do and then just support you big time.
4 days a week, while the local transportation museum is closed, the space is transformed. It becomes home to some of the Yukon's best musicians and eager students having fun.
You feel like you're with friends and you're having a good time.
Andy Slade says he knows not every child has access to the privilege he had as a kid, as a settler Canadian learning music.
My parents drove me to music lessons. My mom was a great cook, and so there was always food in the house. We had a piano at home, and so music was really able to do the thing that it does automatically.
And so while this program is about music, it's also about connection and support, and anything the kids might need to make that happen.
Pick these guys up at their schools, and then other people, it'll sometimes be at their personal houses or other locations downtown.
Everyone gets a text reminder the morning of their lesson. There's also a shuttle bus if you need a ride. In a community that's seen a lot of heartache, this music program is a beacon of light for families. Several Yukon First Nations have declared states of emergency, centered largely on the drug crisis.
We'll get through all of this stuff too. But we gotta work together, we gotta help each other, and we gotta make good choices to make our life here as good as possible. Always believed in music and its power to change lives. So good things are happening in our community. It's not all gloom and doom, right?
That's it. Okay, the whole thing one more time, and then we're gonna go to the next section. 1, 2, here we go. Restart, shake it out, shake it out.
I get to play my favorite instrument, and also there's food too. I really wanted to play the piano for a long time, but I just didn't get a chance. But now I can finally do that, so I'm really grateful.
As part of the program, every student gets an instrument of their choice to take home.
This was from the program. This was the guitar they got me. It's a Yamaha Pacifica, and I am in awe that I own this guitar because it was a lifelong goal, like buying a house, long way in the future, but because of the program I was able to get it while I was still learning, which is amazing.
A program like this does come at a cost. The funding is from Jordan's Principal, federal money that aims to ensure Indigenous children have access to services and supports.
So each child is eligible for up to $12,000 per year per child. And it allows us to make a really profound impact on the lives of the kids who are in this program. The great thing about mistakes is they don't really matter. You're gonna have to make lots of them and they don't hurt.
And while the program has funding for at least 2 years, Slade hopes it continues long after, and that the broader lessons last a lifetime.
I hope that they can wake up in the morning and believe that they can do whatever the heck they want to do. I hope that they can feel empowered to make hard choices, to learn things that they don't already know.
Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Seems like a really great program. A trip to the Prince of Wales Northern Heritage Centre means being able to see hundreds of artifacts. Here in Yellowknife, at the museum, you can see animals, old snowmobiles, tools. There's a lot to take in. But what you see on the museum floor is just a fraction of the items the Heritage Centre is responsible for taking care of. There are about 70,000 artifacts in storage, most behind closed doors right inside the museum. Jocelyn Chappelle shows us what the museum has in its coffers.
Walls of artifacts line the storage room. The room being temperature controlled is just one of the steps being taken to preserve pieces.
Everything makes noise.
Documentation and careful art framing are also at the top of the list.
To create mounts and supports for storage.
Rose Scott is the museum's senior conservator. She believes that people should feel encouraged and welcome to view the items.
When we have people accessing collections, it's the stories around the object, what it brings up for the people looking at it. And there's a lot of shared storytelling and connection. And
Scott says she goes through a careful process of checking incoming items for pests and keeping the thousands of existing pieces in good condition.
Hopefully it'll never happen, but sometimes you get things in from the south that may have been infested with carpet beetles or clothing moths. So again, we go through a process of cleaning, examining, and isolating materials before they come into the collections. And again,
while smaller artifacts and even canoes can be stored at the museum, larger items need to go to a warehouse on the other side of town. Susan Irving is the manager of museum collections. Irving says this includes some pretty old vehicles.
Yeah, so 1920s, 1940s, you know, the first car in Fort Resolution, that kind of thing, and a lovely Land Rover that was driven by the surveyor who surveyed a lot of the town sites around the north and the Mackenzie Highway.
Irving says that as the collection continues to grow, they've had to carefully decide which pieces can go to the warehouse. A major difference is that the warehouse is not temperature controlled or available for the public to visit. Jocelyn Chappelle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
If you live in Hay River, Northwest Territories, or you happen to visit there over the holidays, you may have seen Eva Dryneck Templeton's home. From top to bottom, it is fully decorated for Christmas. The CBC's Carla Ulrich went to visit to find out what inspires her to go all out for the season.
Hi. Hi. Merry Christmas. Welcome to my home. Come in.
Eva Dryneck Templeton's love for Christmas decorating began nearly 2 decades ago, sparked by the birth of her son. It started with a few simple decorations and quickly grew into an annual tradition. Over the years, her family contributed to the collection, gifting her Christmas decor for birthdays and anniversaries. Today, her home is a holiday wonderland with every corner brimming with Christmas magic.
When I was young, I guess you could say like preteen, my brothers, they used to do decoration. So I helped, and then at 14, I sort of like took over, and I moved away, and I continued with it. And then especially when my son was born, I wanted to give him something that I never got, and that was good memory of Christmas. So that's everything that I do is mostly just for my son. And so I created all this for him to give him good memories, Christmas and Easters. So yeah, and that's where it started from.
Dryneck Templeton says she starts the tradition each year by removing all the usual home decor. That way she has even more room to add festive cheer. From decorating the fireplace to stringing lights on every wall, it's a massive labor of love. Friends, family, and even strangers are blown away by her creativity and dedication. Dryneck Templeton says it's the love of Christmas and the reaction she gets that make all the effort worthwhile.
Yeah, and there's so many people who have it's stunning, like they never seen this before. Like they live in a house that seemed like this, but never decorated like this. And some of them say like 50 years of their life they lived in Hay River and they never seen anything like this.
Even Bruce the dog gets in on the Christmas spirit. He has a favorite holiday sweater that he wears to bed every night. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
Well, the holiday spirit isn't just hitting Hay River. Yellowknifers are getting in on the action too, and some of them will end the season with a little extra holiday bonus. The city's Holiday Lights competition is back in full swing. It's a way of recognizing the homeowners and businesses whose holiday spirit shines brightest. Nadir Hashmi shows us some of the contenders.
Over 100 homes across the city are in a race this holiday season. Many city residents CBC spoke to raved about the decorations at a dental office on Franklin Avenue.
Adam's Dental. Every year it's the same thing. He does it in Halloween, he does it in winter. It's just awesome the way he does it.
Another resident, Tara McRae, agrees.
Yeah, we're voting for Adam. Top 3, there's also really nice decorations on 57th Street, so 5026 57th Street, and then also 139 Niven Drive.
A former mayor of Yellowknife says City Hall sets a high standard for holiday lights and decorations.
I live right across the avenue from the City Hall display, and I'm really fond of that.
Lovell has lived in the city since the 1950s, and he recalls holiday lights displays being much simpler back in the day.
There was a guy called Hanson down in 54th Street or so. There was government housing, and every year he really did his house up. Not too many, like Hanson put a few up, and the odd person would put up a tree out in the front yard or something, but it was nothing like what's done today.
With the long, dark winter nights, Lovell says holiday lights are a good way to lift people's spirits.
You know, you get all these nice lights on, and they really pick the town up. You know, the people that do them really do a good thing.
Residents can vote for their favorites on the city's Facebook page. The city says the top 5 winners will get a $100 prize, plus for bragging rights, a Holiday Lights Top 5 plaque. The winners will be announced on January 8, 2025. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Some unbelievably mild temperatures on those weather boards today. -5 in Kingite, I think it was. Could be a good weekend to get out and enjoy the winter weather before it gets really frigid again. That is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, you can always visit our website, cbc.ca/north. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shannon Scott. Megan Roberts is back on Monday. Have a great weekend.
How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
Russian scheme here.
Shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job? Yes.
At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
Stream anytime. CBC News.
This is CBC North on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Local news and weather on your connected TV or favorite device. CBC News North, streaming now.
When we work to end inequity, we help start something better. Support even the odds.
I've been waiting 8 years for this moment. It feels like magical. I'm still like pinching myself.
Bakers, now you are finally here.
Ruby!
You're gonna regret this.
You tried to kill my son.
You're the one who tried to kill him. It's all my fault.
Coronation Street. Watch free on CBC Gem.
I want to have a brew.
Moments that are so on trend right now. Ticket pricing, artificial intelligence, being a Swiftie. Commotion, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.